Even though it's August here in Olympia, it's still time to start planting, if you can believe it or not. Today we're going to go visit Kay Zambone and visit her garden and see what she's growing in self-watering pots, taking care of that watering during August when that water can be limited. Hey, Kay, good morning. Good to see you.
My garden, honey.
Thanks so much for having us out here today. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I had no idea you could do so much in such a little area where you've got the sun here.
Well, you know, every gardener has constraints. And my constraints are my neighbors, which we all have, and trees. I love
trees and neighbors.
Trees and neighbors. Thanks to the lovely fir tree in my neighbor's backyard, my whole backyard is shaded. So I can't garden back there. I've lived here 18 years, and for about 16 of them, I tried to garden in my backyard, and it did not work.
Okay, pause.
This neighbor on this side, a lovely young lady, decided that she wanted to have some bamboo in her yard.
Bamboo.
Yes, and she planted it on her side, and I get the glory of it on my side. And thanks to these trees, that side of my yard is all shaded. So nothing grows over there. The only place I have is right here.
Right here. So, okay, I'm really looking forward to learning about all of your pots. I first started growing in pots as well and then grew from there. I'm looking forward to see the different style that you're doing from what I'm doing and learning all about it. But we're a little bit short on camera people today, so I'm going to let you take the whole area of Olympia on the tour, and I'm going to go work the camera. Is that okay?
Okay, sounds good to me.
All right, let's get going.
Let's do it. I got started working with pots about 4 or 5 years ago because of the constraints of my property. I have a neighbor who raises bamboo that encroaches on that side of my yard. I've got shade 90% of the day, so you can't garden that well in shade. And on this side, I have morning glories growing in to my yard. So with those problems, the only place left for me to garden was right here on the concrete. And whereas concrete you can't grow much in concrete, it does work well for some things because it absorbs the heat during the day and holds it all night. So I have wonderful luck with tomatoes. Peppers grow well here. Jalapenos go crazy. And I found out that pots work for me, but not all pots. Self-watering pots work well for me because I like to be able to leave, be gone a couple of days, and come back and everything still be alive and doing well. Self-watering pots are the answer for me. Tomatoes will drink maybe 2 gallons of water in a day's time. So if I come out in the morning and I water, and in a little pot, if I don't water again at noon, my tomato dies. But if I have self-watering pots, then I can come out in the morning, I can fill up the reservoir in the pot, and my plants are good for all day. In fact, most of the time I can be gone 2 days, 2 full days and nights, and I'll come back and there's still a little bit of water in the bottom of my pots. Like I said, not all self-watering pots, however, are truly self-watering. This one I bought online. It seems to me it was $39, which I thought was a lot of money. But if it works, it's worth every penny of it. And it has worked really well. I can't remember the name of it, but if you go online and say self-watering pot, that'll pop right up. As you can see, it's got a hole here. You can fill it here, and it's got about 2 gallons of water in it. After I spent all that money on that pot, and I bought 10 of them, so I did invest the money in them. I found out that I could build my own self-watering pots. All you need is a pot that does not have a hole in the bottom. If it doesn't have a hole in the bottom, you can turn it into a self-watering pot. And all you do is, well, I've got a piece back here. Let me show you how it works. There's a lady that lives out on the other side of Lacey that grows even apple trees in pots. And she let all of us come to her home and see her garden. And while I was there, she was talking about self-watering pots and how you could build them. And this is how you do it. You go out to Walmart and you buy a bucket. And you bring it home and you drill some holes in it, some of them at 3 inches and some of them at 4 inches. And then on the inside, you put some field tiles. And these are, you can get these Home Depot. They have holes in them, and you just cut them to fit in the bottom of your bucket. Then you take the top, and this is not the top, this is the top to a red one, of course, and you cut out the center, voila, and you dump it in. You put ground cloth in, and as you can see, there's a hole here. You push the ground cloth in, clear to the bottom of the pot, and then you fill it with soil. Oh, and you put that in to water it. Put your ground cloth in, fill it with soil, and voila, you've got a couple of gallons of water down in the bottom. And this keeps your roots from growing down into the water. And the ground cloth keeps the dirt from sinking into the bottom. So in effect, you've got all that water sitting in the bottom. You've got a self-watering pot. And it costs about, oh, I don't know. Seems to me like I paid $5 for the bucket in opposed to a $40 pot. And it works just as well. This pot, I bought it at Costco. And it did not have a hole in the bottom. And I did basically the same thing. I put some plastic coffee cans with the bottoms cut out of them and the bottom, and I cut a piece of plastic to fit in there and put the dirt on the top and put a pipe in, and there's about 1.5 gallons of water in the bottom of that pot. And all of these pots are the same way. I've turned all of them into self-watering pots. It's really amazing what you can grow in these self-watering pots. Fuchsias and mint. This is green onions. These will probably last me through the entire winter because I will push my pots up next to my garage door when it gets a little colder, and they'll keep right on growing. This is broccoli, and I did have 2 meals of broccoli off of that. This is a green pepper, and they're not huge, but they're definitely edible. Basil, thyme. I've got some rosemary in here. These I started all these from seed this year, so that's kind of fun. This is chive, and I keep cutting it, and it keeps right on growing. I have some parsley, flat leaf parsley, coleus, nasturtiums go crazy, dahlias, a little bit of everything. Okay. One of the big advantages to gardening here on my concrete is that people walking by on the street can see all my lovely flowers. And it seems like everybody wants to stop and talk to me about them. So I've managed to meet all of my neighbors and people that live 3, 4, 5 blocks away. They come by walking their dog, and I get to talk to them. And it's really has been nice. As you can see, tomatoes do really well here. This one is a new variety for me this year. It's supposed to be green, but I've noticed that it's turning orange, and I don't know how you tell when it's ripe. I guess if it gets soft, it'll be ripe. Another thing is, I'm sure you've noticed that I have lots of whirligigs in my yard. That's because I have another constraint with this property. I have feral cats, and if I don't keep something in the pots to scare them away, then I have kitty litter in my pots. Back behind here, I have jalapeno peppers. They do well. This is a yellow pear tomato. Here I have broccoli. I had several meals off of these two plants, and this is a sprouting variety that will keep coming up with little bunches of broccoli, and I like to have them in salad, so it's just enough for me to include them in my salad. This is a plant that somebody gave me. Who gave that to me? Can't remember. At any rate, it's a cross between broccoli and Brussels sprouts. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what part of it you eat. It hasn't formed any heads yet, so it's just another one of those things. We'll see what happens. This is parsnips. I've never grown them before. I had some seed and I dumped it in. It seems to be doing quite well. If you could see down in there, I have little parsnips that are, oh, maybe bigger around than a silver dollar. Rhubarb, I've planted rhubarb every year on this property, every year for 16 years, and I killed it every year for 16 years. And then I put it in a pot, and darn if I don't finally have rhubarb, and having really good luck with it. This is cucumbers. If I don't make them grow up, they take over. This particular variety is a yellow variety, and they say they're round, but they're not. Well, I guess they are round, and they're bright yellow, and they make wonderful pickles. And I will probably get, oh, maybe 4 quarts out of this little bit of cucumber patch. But that, for me, that I live alone, and 4 quarts is just about what it takes for the winter. It's a nice little cucumber. They're low in acid, which is good because the green kind have a tendency to make me burp, and these don't. So I really like this kind. Now we're going to talk about my favorite part of the whole garden. I'm 81 years old. I don't want to get down and on my knees and work in my lettuce, so I plant my lettuce in my veggie pod. With my veggie pod, I can grow greens year-round. I bought this 4 years ago at the Seattle Flower and Garden Show. The people that invented it are in Australia, but they have an office down in California, and they're wonderful people to deal with. The pod cost me about $400, but as you can see, I get quite a crop out of it. I planted. I've just dug it up, and there's nothing in here really now. I've got lettuce sprouting. I've got pak choy sprouting. I'll transplant those, and within a month and a half, this will be completely full of greens, and it will be enough to last me all winter. Right now, the cover on it is permeable. It's a mesh, so I don't get any bugs or anything in there. I haven't had any slugs in it, which that's a big plus. There's also a solid plastic cover that goes over the top of this, so that turns it into a coal frame. I don't know if you can see with the camera or not, but there is a watering system hooked on the top ridge of this. So when I do need to water it, all I have to do is, with a quick connect my hose, and it'll spray the whole thing. It's self-watering. Down in the bottom, there's 4 compartments, and down the bottom 6 inches of each of these compartments is filled with perlite. Not the little fine perlite, but the big crunchy pieces, and that allows the water to be down in the bottom, and so it's self-watering. I don't know what else to say about it. Several days ago, I set up this little pot. It's just some soil in the bottom, and I've planted some lettuce and some pak choi. Once they're sprouted, I'll transplant them into my veggie pod. The celery, this is my first time of growing celery, and this is supposed to be a pink variety. I don't see it being pink, and I haven't picked it because I just have the one. My dill, I grew one little chunk of dill here, and I've got another little chunk of dill in a pot to go with to make my pickles with. So this will go away. There's a couple of carrots in here, and I'll pull those, and this will be just greens. 4 different, I normally plant 4 different kinds of lettuce. A green, a brown leaf, bright red one, radishi, because I like the flavor of radishi. I do pak choi because it's smaller than the bok choy, but I like it in salad. Sometimes I plant kale. Kale will do well all winter long. I haven't sprouted any this year, but this is just the time of year when I start sprouting things. So over the next 2 weeks, I'll plan everything that I want in my salad that I can grow in winter here. I'll plant within the month of August. And like I said, by October, I'll be eating salad out of my garden. Most everybody is familiar with coal frames or have heard of coal frames, and basically that's what this is just a glorified coal frame. If you haven't ever heard about coal frames, they're nothing more than a way to keep heat on plants when the weather gets really cold. And how you do that is by enclosing them usually in a box, and putting a cover over the top that the sun can go through. They can be made out of glass, they can be made out of plastic, they can be made out of most anything. There are some good references how to build one online. YouTube is wonderful. If you go out to YouTube, it'll tell you all about coal frames. And with the weather like our weather here in Pacific Northwest, we don't get a whole lot of severe weather, cold weather in the winter, and everybody could be growing all of their greens all winter long with very little effort. If you notice, I've got a bunch of succulents. The Master Gardener Program, the Craft Committee, makes fairy gardens, and we use succulents in our fairy gardens, and these are all starts that I've got going that would be planted, and next spring when we have our plant sale, these will all be in a fairy garden. I don't know how many varieties I've got there. These I went out to Closed Loop and got. These are just varieties that I've picked up. I've seen somebody that had one, and I picked off a couple of pieces and stuck in there. They seem to do well in there. And I noticed that there's a few weeds. Okay. Last but not least, we're going to do my potato garden. You'll notice that these containers are recycle bins. And I found that if I plant my potatoes in them, I can start with one bin and plant my potatoes, And then when they grow up a little ways, I can put another layer on and some more soil, another layer and more soil till I get them this high. And I have a pretty good crop of potatoes, and there's nothing like a big baker out of your own garden. I mean, something about homegrown potatoes. And then this year, I decided that I was going to plant an artichoke. And I've never had luck with artichokes. They've been kind of like the rhubarb. I plant them every year and nothing happens. This year, I'm going to get an honest-to-goodness artichoke out of my garden. And there's a second one here. There's one down there. I may get 3 artichokes. And come fall, I'm going to cover this with plastic and see if I can't get it to winter over. And lastly is this onion. This onion started out its life in a little pot 4 years ago. And when the onions that I don't eat each year, I let them go to seed because they come up and they've got this lovely ball of seed pod on them. And the bees just are absolutely crazy over the onions. So this little onion, it's been here and I've been waiting for it to go to seed. Its next door neighbor went to seed, but it still hasn't. And instead of being a green bunchy onion, I've got this, I don't know what, and I'm going to pull it up. I've been wondering what it looks like underneath, so I'm going to pull it up. And there it is. There's my bunching onion. And I don't know if it's edible or not. This is a Jerusalem artichoke. The roots of it, you're supposed to be able to do anything with the Jerusalem artichoke root as you would do with a potato. You can bake it, you can boil it, you can cook it, whatever. The only problem is they're very invasive. And the first year I had them, I planted them in the ground, and I ended up with half an acre of Jerusalem artichokes. But the foliage is kind of pretty, so I put them in a pot, and normally they would be this tall and very robust, but since they're in a pot, they're under control, and they're different. Let's dig up one of my potatoes and see what I've got. Usually I have real good luck, and this plant here is ready to be dug. So, and there's a couple of little ones. Let's see what we've got here. Holy moly, look at that one.
Can you keep them down in the dirt so that I can see?
Oh, look at that. Huh. No, I guess that's all I'm going to get. But 2 big ones, that's not bad. I have some examples of some pots that I'd like to show people. I think that I'm the world's biggest sucker where pots are concerned. I go to the store and I see a new variety of pot, and I have to have one. And I buy it and I bring it home, and 90% of the time it doesn't work like they said it would at all. They got my money and I got stuck with another pot. But I do have some that do work. This pot was given to me. I have no idea how much it would cost or anything, but it has a reservoir in the bottom, and you put water in through this little straw, and it's got this thing, this wick that goes down in the bottom of the pot. And darn if it doesn't work. It's not very pretty, but it really works. Now, when I was down in Phoenix, they came out with these pots. Hang your tomatoes upside down. Plant them, they come out the bottom. You hang the darn thing up, and your tomatoes grow up around this, guaranteed to give you a wonderful, wonderful crop of tomatoes. The only thing that they don't mention, that if a windstorm comes along, the pot begins to swing, and you go out and your lovely tomato plant is on the ground. Then there's this pot. These you can buy them for $2.95 at the Walmart store or at Fred Meyer, and they're advertised as being self-watering, and really they are. They hold the way that this sets in a dish, and you do have a certain amount of water around it, and it works really well as long as you don't plant tomatoes in them. You plant tomatoes in them and there's not enough water for tomatoes. But regular things do okay in this kind of pot. And another thing about this crazy pot is trying to plant the plant in there. You've got to stick it in and then put the dirt around it, and then you're playing with it. And if you have it hanging, I don't know. I never did quite figure out how you got it to work. And I had this lovely tomato in it, and there was fruit on it. And seriously, we had a windstorm, and I went out, and there it was laying on the ground. And of course, the minute it hit the ground, it broke all the limbs and everything off of it. So another poor idea. But the guy that invented it, I'm sure he made plenty of money on it. As I said earlier, I belong to Master Gardeners, and we have a craft committee, and we make various things and sell them, and the money goes to the Master Gardener program. And several years ago, I was at one of these street markets, and I found this flower. Now that's got to be the ugliest flower I've ever seen in my life, but I could figure out how to make one by taking this one apart. So I spent $15 to buy this. I took it apart, and I've been making these guys. Now you may think they're just as ugly as that one, but I think this one is a lot prettier. And as you can see, I've made them in several different colors. This particular one has glow-in-the-dark leaves. All of these big fat ones on the outside I painted with glow-in-the-dark paint. We will see whether they glow in the dark or not. I think it would have to be pretty dark, but we'll see. And if you're interested in lawn art, we'll be at the spring the spring plant sale, and these will be for sale for only $10.
Okay, I want to thank you for taking all of Olympia on a little tour of your garden. It's really amazing everything that you've been able to grow in self-watering pots on the cement and basically no dirt, nothing in the ground at all. Yeah. It's amazing.
Well, I wish you had been here about a month ago because all of my lilies were in bloom then, and it really was glorious and it smelled good. Today, the only thing that smells good is my basil.
Yeah, I can smell that. It smells fantastic.
Yeah. I was out here this morning picking the flowers off of it, and then it left a nice odor. Well, thank you for coming to visit me.
Thanks so much for having us out. And if you would like to follow more of Ole Grown, you can follow us on Facebook and on YouTube and Instagram at Ole Grown TV. Thanks everyone for watching.